Hello and welcome to another edition of Pro Wrestling 101. I am your host, JP John Poz from the Two Man Power Trip. Today, joining me, a very special guest, Big Stevie Cool, the man, the myth, the legend. He's wrestled all around the world. He's, of course, Stevie Richards. Stevie, what's going on? How you doing today, sir?
My throat has finally calmed down, thank God. Just like when the music hits in the gorilla position and everything hurts the second before, and then you get into a hopefully state of mind where we're not going to have any coughing fits. And I do not have COVID, by the way. Just
Yeah.
wanted to preface that.
That's like I worked a show with Sean Waldman. I was just like a manager on the show, and he was like the main event. But I drove him to and from the show, and he literally was walking with crutches. I'm like, man, I was like, how the hell are you going to wrestle? He was like, oh, I'll be fine. And then as soon as his music hit, the crutches are gone, and he walks down the ring and has a match, and he's fine. As soon as he gets to the back, he collapses. That's going to be you after the show. You're going to be you're coughing, the music hits, you're all set, and then after it's done, you're going to be coughing like crazy.
Well, as Bobby Eaton once said numerous times, actually, if you don't talk, you can't get heat. So if I can't talk for the rest of the day, then I can't get any heat.
That's a good point. But of course, Pro Wrestling 101, it's a topic that you actually brought up. It was almost like a day in the life of what, like the real day in the life of a wrestler is. We see the glitz, we see the glamour, we see the guys on TV, we see them doing the backstage stuff, we see them doing autograph signings. But what is a real day in the life of the wrestler? Because it's so much different than what the fan thinks of. It's a lot tougher.
Yeah, they do think, and well, it's the fantasy land where you assume the movies are made in a day, and you assume that the wrestlers and the football players and everybody just magically teleport to the stadiums, the arenas, and to the shows. There's a lot of steps. The day in a life of a wrestler can vary, especially the first day of, say, a house show loop, and then going into the TVs. It used to be, let's say, for example, for even if you were doing, say, it used to be Monday was Raw, Tuesday was SmackDown, and SmackDown was taped for Thursday. Sometimes I think it was live Tuesdays. Then you lumped in ECW, which was most times taped before SmackDown or live sometime in there. But you talk about a Friday to a Tuesday loop, so you're traveling early Friday morning if you're booked on house shows, and then if you're on both TVs, you go to Wednesday. We'll get into the factor sometimes you'll tape TVs and then you'll go overseas for a week. And then when you come back, you're right back to another TV. So there could be sometimes a 2 to 3 week loop for long international tours. So let's start off with, say, Friday morning. You usually always get an early flight Friday morning or Saturday morning, depending upon when your house show loop starts. And for me, at least, you don't start off in the town that you're landing in. So you usually have a flight, a connection. Then there's usually always a delay on the first day because it's always the longest day. And Murphy's Law with that with wrestling.
Yep.
And then you get to the town you land in, which is usually a major city, but you'll have to drive 100 to 150 miles, maybe less, but usually more, because they have to space out the loop in order to draw a crowd. You can't run it too close together because one house will suffer. So let's put that out there too, right there. The people that do the logistics for the event booking are some of the most organized people. And when you have the wrong person in there, the entire company suffers, especially the talent, production, everybody else, because you're putting them in a less advantageous position. It's hard enough as it is, but when you add in bad logistics, it makes a hard tour near impossible. So there's a guy, Rich Baker, that used to do it when I started with WWE in '99. He was incredible. We had some people towards the end that were not so great. So you back to the schedule, you land, and then you got to drive. But if you're not like me and not an early morning workout person, you got to find a gym on the way to the building. If you don't have delays, there's times where, like for a few Fridays, where I was so delayed on both flights, had the long drive, and I was riding with somebody, and I was first match, and I was literally putting my gear on. And as we got out of the car to get into the arena, my music was hitting, and I went right to the ring for the first match.
Wow.
That's a long day. That's a
Yeah.
pretty long
Geez.
day. And then to cap off the Friday, because like I said, you have to space it out. You have to make sure you're far enough away and you're working towards the TV day. Sometimes you'd have between a 200 to 300 mile drive after the show. So you're not getting your day could start in my case sometimes at say 3 a.m. because I'll work out before my flights. Then you have a 6 or 7 a.m. flight because you got to get to the airport, do all that stuff. And then you have the whole day. Then you got the match. Say I had to get right out of the car, do that. You got to stay till the end of the show, and then you got to drive. So your day could be a legitimate 24-hour day before you're checking in to the hotel.
Wow. And are you traveling alone, or are you traveling with somebody, or with a group of people?
It's been a mixture. I have to say, like, it's really hard, at least back then, to find somebody you sync up with outside the ring, and a lot of times it's packing order stuff. Like I would travel with people that were on different spots on the card, but they didn't care. But there's very much a cliquish, like top guys would travel with top guys type thing. At least that's what I saw. Or because you relate better anyway, because if a top guy's traveling with somebody that was in my position, we have two totally different outlooks on what's going on in our careers. So the car rides can be, at least from my perspective, the car rides can be very um not stressful, but they can be real weird. But I had friendships with people that were different spots on the card where our interests were working out, finding good gyms, playing video games, and not doing all the other things that that's another interest that you have to, one guy wants to party and the other guy wants to get up and work out at 5 a.m. That's not going to mix up too well.
Right.
Now, during the end of my WWE run and actually on my independent run, which supposedly people tell me I'm still an active wrestler, I I love traveling alone. I do not like anybody or anything getting in the way. I'm very much a routine oriented person. And that's a good thing. I'm structured in a lot of ways. And wrestling and being on the road, if you have two people that are on two different schedules, it's going to cause a lot of stress.
Definitely. And you can get out of there, right? If after your match, if you want to, you don't have to wait for them or their placement on the card or whatever. You can come and go as you please.
Well, I travel with Kane, so I was waiting all the
Oh,
time. There was very, very few instances, unless he was squashing me on Raw, that we were ever in the same segment. So,
yeah,
uh, yeah, but then again, like if you have friends and you want to support them, be there and watch their stuff, and then guys would talk about it on the road, as long as you have the understanding that our friendship is not wrestling based. That's a very important thing, a very hard thing to come by in wrestling. Dreamer and I famously, when it would be a dark match or be heat or not be booked on a pay per view, and when the opening pyro would hit on the pay per view, we would sneak out the door because
nice.
we're under the cover of extreme explosions.
Yes. So I'm just always curious, like, if the gym part. Do you find the gym beforehand? Does the gym almost find you to say, "Hey, we want a famous wrestler to work out here," or is it a secret that you're working out there? Because I feel like they would want some of the guys maybe to drum up some business, thinking like wrestlers in town. But I would think also the wrestlers kind of don't want to be bothered. You know what I mean? It's their private time.
Well, yeah, it's a mixture of things. I would work out at times where people wouldn't be there anyway, and I would more times than not, I would probably book hotels by the airport because it was convenient. Obviously, if I was traveling with Glenn, and I would travel with D'Lo, Charles Robinson, Rosie when he was doing the superhero gimmick with Shane, the mixture of people. But my number one thing was to find the gym and where we were going to go and what gym, because that was my hobby back then, and it's turned into a business, as with Stevie Richards Fitness and the home gym stuff. But that would be my solace, my control over a very uncontrollable career. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know. I mean, if people think they didn't know what they were doing now with booking, it was like that before. The talent didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what was going on. You didn't know if you had quote heat because it just gets invented. It was like your turn to have it or something. But I would love finding gyms because number one, I had a natural interest in like different gyms that was like, oh, cool. Oh, my wife is texting me. Sorry. Um, See, I didn't have this either when I was wrestling. I would just travel alone and do my own thing. That's a whole nother thing we can talk about because I've seen guys. It's a lot of outside factors that add stress onto to an already stressful, career. But the gym for me too was like it was cool to tell people like Glenn and other people, hey man, I found this gym. I can't wait till we go to this gym. Now with the gyms too back then, I don't know if it's like this today, but you would know if the town was promoted correctly or properly or enough because the gym would have people coming up to you and going, oh, you guys are in town for Raw or SmackDown or House Show, and there'd be a buzz about it. And obviously, the gym would most times let guys work out for free, which saves us money. Now, I'll back up
Yep.
on that. And this is where, I don't quite look like a carny, but I can be one sometimes. Um, if I came in and I said, and I don't look like a wrestler most times, besides the hair. And when you're next to somebody like Kane or other people, they don't believe you're a wrestler. I'm more inept for if I told somebody, hey, I'm one of the lighting guys, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. But
Right.
I would go up to the counter and instead of saying, hey, we're in town with wrestling and blah, 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 if they already didn't know, because you'd walk in and they'd be like, oh, cool, you're in town. Yeah, go ahead. In the late tan and stuff, pretty generous stuff that some gym owners would do. But if I got tired of going, hey, explaining I'm a wrestler and blah, 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 and trying to get them tickets, I would say I would find an apartment complex on the drive in, get the name, and say, hey, I'm moving into town. I'm looking at an apartment in this complex. Could I try the gym out for free? And they'd be like, oh yeah, sure. So
Right. Right. Yeah.
a
Nice. I
lot
love it.
easier. I
Yeah.
spent a lot less time explaining my case to do that. So if anybody's looking to get a free workout at the local gym, look for an apartment and say you're moving there.
Yeah, but I feel like nowadays with you, they would think that you're one of the bigger wrestlers, for sure.
Yeah, they'd be like, oh my God, it's like Andre the Giant.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but you know what's funny is I do get, on a side note, I do get recognized like in places like when my wife and I were at TJ Maxx or Marshalls, looking for a blanket for us, but the cats would take it. Obviously, if you're a cat owner, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
And I got approached a lot, and I didn't have the beard when I've wrestled or anything, which is really strange because I don't have the facial or anything like that. But a guy came up and he was very respectful and very nice. We had a nice conversation about health and fitness, and it's kind of weird to see my wife because she still considers me to be me, which is awesome. That's exactly what any man or woman will want, them to love you for you. And she's like, I was just wondering why this guy was talking to you. And then it hit me. Oh, that's right. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I noticed.
yeah, I mean, that's one of the remarks that I get a lot. And this guy he's like, dude, you're really big compared to like what I see on wrestling today. And I'm like, well, that's cool. There you
Yeah.
go, right there.
Bigger than ever almost. Yeah.
Bigger
So
than ever, but trying to be smaller than ever at
yeah.
50.
So, like, we got the gym. What about like eating and drinking? Because you hear the Owen Hart story. Oh, the guy carries around bologna sandwiches to save money on the road, and
Mhm.
and different things like that. So, do the guys like go to like what is it? Like a supplement store or whatever, GNC or something like that, or are they going to the supermarket getting cheap stuff, making stuff? Like, what do you eat on the road, or is it just like fast food central? Like, what do the guys do as far as eating and drinking on the road?
Well, I was an anomaly. I mean, I'm more probably leaning towards Owen Hart, who said he ate bologna sandwiches and other stuff. For the 4 days I would be on the road, and especially if it was just one or two TVs, it would be shakes and bars because I already bought them anyway. That's a write off. And at the same time, I have it at home so I can pack it in Tupperware, have the bars. And also, I always tried to like pack to where I didn't have to wait for my baggage because, like I said before, if you're there, they could lose your bags, by the way, but also you got another 20 minutes on the wait for your bags when you got to get to the building when, you especially want to get home. If you're landing and waiting, like at most of the time I lived in Connecticut for WWE. So I'm at Hartford Airport and I got a half-hour drive to my house. And I'm just like, that eats. And then, you got to be on the road 2 days later. You start to be very time aware. So I would do that. I would say this though, I probably did some damage to my body as far as adrenal fatigue because not eating enough, not eating properly on the road. And then, of course, time zone differences, flights, lack of sleep over the course of almost 30 years, 10 of which was with WWE. It hurts your body. So I'm still kind of like trying to reset my body from that stuff. It's a really tough thing to overcome. Now, again, don't cry for me. I did it because I chose to,
Right.
but I did also whatever I could to save money. I guess that's where we can talk about next because, you know, trying to get to the gym for free that adds up over
Right.
4 days. If they're charging $10 a day pass, that's $40. Your hotel, your rental car, your gas, your food. We are truly independent contractors. The only thing that's covered is flights. And like I said, under that it was 275 and then it turned to 300 miles. Over that mileage, you would get a flight and they would push it right to like 274, 298, and you would have multiple days of those like over 200-mile drives. And then you're talking about the added cost of a rental car with a one-way drop off. I feel bad for the people today with inflation, the chip shortages on cars, all that. Dude, I was paying $100 a day for a rental car at one point after all this stuff started to open back up. And that's your money, that you're losing money being on the road sometimes.
Yeah, that's why I'm always curious because let's figure you get the rental cars, you're eating, you're on the road 24/7 basically. So you got to find a place to eat. Yeah, obviously it could be the hotel. I mean, a million different things could pop up. The gym, if you have to pay to work at the gym. I mean, it's hard to save money on the road,
Tanning,
right?
tanning on top of that.
Yep.
The hotel thing, like my wife just kind of rolls her eyes in a good way because she's like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you did." And I still would sometimes do it today, but most promoters pay for my hotel. But in WWE, when I had a rule, especially going home, like on the road, it's different. If you got to be in a hotel, between towns or whatever. But when I had my like TV, say SmackDown or ECW, it sometimes or most times wouldn't be in the town I was flying out of. So I'd still have a 100-mile drive sometimes to drive to like Minnesota one time. We were outside Minneapolis and then I drove back to Minneapolis after an ECW TV. I think it was myself and Dreamer versus Kevin Thorne and Elijah Burke. I don't know why I remember that, but I drove the 100 miles. There was a Gold's Gym not too far from the airport, not right there, but not too far. I worked out after TV because by the time I got back from there, because we got out of TV like maybe 11 o'clock, 100-mile drive, I have to grab something to eat sometimes, or I have my bar and shake. And I'm like, my God, it's like 12:30, 1 o'clock. I filled up the gas too because I was close enough to the airport, I think. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, I might as well work out because if I get a hotel at this point, it's going to for even 50, 40, $50, because I would stay at the Motel 6, the Red Roofs, or even cheaper than that. I didn't do a Marriott or any of that stuff. So it'd be like 2:30 by the time I was done working out. And I'd be like, well, I don't, why get a hotel? So I'd either sleep in the
Right.
locker room if they had a nice like couch there, or kind of like, doze off or read a book in the lobby, or I would drive the rental car to the rental car return and sleep in the rental car until 4 a.m., 4:30 when I had to go check in for my 6 a.m. flight. Because that was very important for me, dude. First flight out to get to the road is one thing. First flight home is paramount. Because what happens at an airport, John, as the day goes on? What happens to flights?
More delays and more delays. I always do that too. Like if I'm flying, I always try to get the first one because I was like, man, everyone else could be screwed
Right.
after that because of one flight. Everybody else could get screwed.
Exactly. So get the F out of there
Yeah, yeah.
as
Get
soon
in
as
and get
possible because
out.
you want to go home anyway as one of the boys. So I don't understand why none of the wrestlers, why they're taking 1 p.m. flights and they know they got to come back 2 days later. Get that half day, man, and go home.
Yeah, really. Wake up a little earlier or
You're
sleep
going to
in the
be
car, like you
tired.
said.
Wait,
Yeah.
you're going to be tired whether it's 6 a.m. or 1 p.m. with being on the road. And normally the 1 p.m. flights are because you're out till 6 a.m., which I'm not doing.
Now, I heard McFoley used to make friends on the road, and these people would drive him around. I'm sure he'd pay
Owen
them
would
a
do that too, right?
yes, and and yes, we do it too. Like, you find friends in the town. I remember, there's this woman that from Philly, you probably know her, I don't remember her name. Is it Cassie? I forget her name.
Donna. Well,
Okay,
no,
Donna.
Donna would go to Philly a lot, but she would also drive in the South. She would help Tom Brandy out and other guys too, right? Is
Yep.
that her?
Yep, and Donna, I forget her last name starts
Glasses,
with a
right?
D.
She had
Yep.
glasses.
Yeah, I think her last name starts with a D, or though I don't even wanna say it, but she would do it, and then, Booker T used to have this woman, it's so funny, he used to call her sister. Whenever he was in the Northeast, she would drive him everywhere, so it's like, it's good to have these awesome people that would do that, that are, obviously, hopefully getting financially rewarded, but it's cheaper than doing drop off, rent a car, and rushing around, blah, blah, 'cause these people are kinda like, life time savers and lifesavers.
They're very generous people. The
Yes.
fans and the people that are really like that. And I would say more times than not, they're not getting financially rewarded outside of maybe tickets. They're doing it because they're truly fans and they want to help out.
Yeah. I know
And
Foley would give merch and stuff too to the people. So like which is probably invaluable, Sacco or whatever he autographs for him. So that's kind of cool in a certain way.
yeah, I mean, as long as you're not expecting it or you're not mad if it's not offered to you, that's also something in the entitlement of some of the talent to think they deserve this kind of treatment. These are human beings that aren't making the money we're making and giving their time, their wear and tear,
Yep.
and other things. Maybe sometimes even their homes, because Owen would stay at people's houses sometimes too, right?
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
I'm not quite like they see. I'm very much an introvert, which is I'm afraid of flying and I'm an introvert. So I picked the absolute worst business to be in.
Yeah.
So,
Really.
but being an introvert like I am and always have been, outside of the select few people that shared the Madden tournaments and other things we would play on the original Xbox on the road, I would love being just by myself because it was so much social, like high school cafeteria stuff in the locker room and in the business and even dealing with management and dealing around these alpha people. I'm not talking about the alpha males of talent. I'm talking about Vince McMahon and other people, and then other people that don't have your best interests at heart. So you live in a very stressed, institutionalized kind of world, like a prison yard, if that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
And the warden, you don't know when the warden's gonna you like to just start messing with you, or you don't know what you're even making day to day. So for me, my time alone and my time at the gym, and also being able to control my finances was all very important. Because I had no control over creative. I had no control over the amount of times I worked, how good my matches can be, or if I was going to be destined to even advance in my career. As a matter of fact, it regressed year over year in WWE. So I had to take control of these other things. Wrestling is it's a very emotional business, but also you have to, and I didn't discover this until probably even recently over the past couple of years, stoicism, all the tenets of stoicism. If I had discovered those along with like the Ramsey principles, which I was already kind of doing, but if I had these two structures in my life, probably mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and then even financially, I'd probably be in an even better position because I had no um outside of my own just mental and spiritual emotional discipline. I didn't have a guide to rely on. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Like basically, I didn't even realize, like, I was so obsessed when I got home with working out harder and dieting harder and trying to look better and trying to find the factors that would make them finally recognize my talent and start using me like I wanted to be used so I can make more money and so they can, like count on me to do stuff. That's the true like damage of the business is, for lack of a better term, the mind fuck of it all that we put on ourselves in our off time where we can't truly disconnect from it. So, you know, the factors that we're going to talk about with working out and dieting and logistics and then finances, dude, if your mind's not straight, you can't even begin to organize any of that.
So to me, it's like, man, okay, seems like, oh, the limelight, the fans, the adulation, the guys, doing autograph signings and having all these people waiting online to meet you. They love you. They want to take a picture of you. But then when you get away from that, it's like, oh my God, the travel sucks. The finding a gym, let's say, because you got to look good, you got to stay in shape. Finding the tanning salon, paying for all that stuff, paying for the rented cars, paying for the hotels, food, because you got to feed your body, you got to eat. Then you got to find some place, maybe if you want to get shakes and stuff. If you're not bringing it from home, you got to find GNC or something. So I mean,
Mhm.
oh, it sucks, it sucks. And then you realize at the end of the day, when the year's over, shit, I got to do taxes. Like,
Yeah.
right? I mean, at every state you go in, you have to be vigilant and figure out how much money each state is. I'm sure there's some sort of from up above of the high tower at the office. I'm sure they're giving you some sort of like tax information, but man, the breakdown of that is just nuts. Doesn't seem like the most fun thing to do to break down these taxes after all that nonsense.
No, and I want to back up to the working out once again. That's why I invented the SRF programs, because I was doing them. Resistance bands were a huge part of my workouts because I didn't always have access to the gym. I didn't
Right.
always feel like I wanted to pay $20 to like whatever the big like Lifetime Fitness in Chicago. I'm not paying $20 to spend an hour here. You know what I mean? Uh, so the bands were essential to me, and also with injuries. Think about in your mind. I just talked about the emotional roller coaster. What if you're hurt? Now you're like trying to act like an accountant, a travel agent, and you're trying to hide the fact that you're hurt so you can wrestle, but you're also getting more hurt at the same time. It's a hell of a fact.
Oof.
And you got to just
Yeah.
sit there and do your taxes
Yeah.
as your
Yep.
elbow or your knee or your neck is killing you. And then you got to think straight. Like I said, don't cry for any of us. We all chose to do this, and it's an incredible blessing because you wouldn't be talking to me today if I didn't do all this stuff. I wouldn't be selling band programs. I wouldn't be selling home gym equipment because I use my 30 years as a wrestler and the injuries and all the other stuff. So when people see me at 50 years old and they say, this guy's still trying to keep himself in really good shape. That's cool. That's a novelty. Or I look something like I did in my 8x10s from 15 years ago. That's a converted sale. So there's everything I went through, and all the stuff was well worth. And I wouldn't be podcasting with Vince Russo. And like I said, you wouldn't be talking to me, or we wouldn't be doing this podcast about all the experiences. But the taxes back then, to get back to your question, finally, the taxes back then, dude, it was a pile of envelopes,
Oh, geez.
manual returns. I had an accountant, and then I had a bad accountant who didn't understand the business. He wasn't bad, but he didn't understand the business. So there was, because you got no write-offs. So I was paying even more. I found the right accountant at the time, and that was the person I had from. It was actually my cousin Johnny, who's my money guy. Uh, his accountant, and he introduced. No. I back up. It wasn't. It was Delo's. Delo introduced me to his accountant, and that guy was my accountant up until 2 years ago. Well, my cousin told me, hey, listen, you can save even more money. And me and my accountant are still friends. He went a different path anyway, with more business related type. I'm a more of a personal filer now than a business. I'm not an S Corp or an LLC anymore. So that's a whole nother thing you got to do, punch a
Yeah.
fan, start an
Yep.
LLC.
Yep.
But sue the corporation, not the person. But with my accounting 2 years ago, my cousin who has investments, properties, he has more complicated stuff than even I have. He goes, dude, I use TurboTax. I've been doing it for 14 years. I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, I used to go into the guy, but now you can do it on the computer. And if you subscribe to TurboTax, they give you an app to itemize all your write-offs. So for a wrestler, and you get to file like electronically, which wasn't a thing. Like my
Right.
my my mail bill, because I didn't trust the government. I still don't. It would be all certified because they lost a lot of stuff, and then you got to refile it. So I would get certified mail, and it would probably cost me $200 to $300 a year in mail just to get that out there. And that's just for the federal, the state I lived in, the states you wrestle in. Then places like LA and Philly have an entertainment tax. So you got to file on a city level. Then you go international, you got to file international returns. Very complicated, very complex. But with the electronic filing, literally they're doing audit checks. If I need to, and this isn't an ad for TurboTax, but we can clip this and see if they'll sponsor two-man power trip. That would be
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
It's a 50-50 split, right? Since I
Yes.
mentioned
Yes.
it. So with that being said, it's just amazing because I actually traveled before there was GPS, when you had to use a map, go to local game. I mean, I'm appreciative of all the technology. So like I was doing my taxes and I said, man, I'm not so sure about this write-off. Oh, I can live chat with a CPA. Oh, I can get on a FaceTime call with a CPA, and I'm paying like $300 a year, dude,
Yeah.
which is half to a third. And if I had full-time wrestling, I had to keep my accountant on retainer and file quarterly. So I'm saving all this money using this stuff. And it's just fascinating that, like, I hear talent today complain how hard it is to do their taxes and how they didn't get it in time, or to get them in on time, or they missed a write-off, when you can put it all within an app that'll itemize it. It's crazy. So that's what I do today as a business owner and as a personal, like, individual business owner with taxes. But dude, it was in April when you would have to get it done. It was truly like a week long process of on the phone with the accountant, filing everything, stack of receipts that you would have to go in, and I had an Excel worksheet. But most guys would hand their accountant a shoebox full of receipts, which they would charge you more to go through and itemize the receipts. But tough stuff, man, back then. And like I repeat before, piled on top of the wrestling politics of not knowing what they're doing, of not knowing how much you're going to make, of not knowing how much you're going to be allowed to work, because it's up to them how much you get paid, how much you work, how much you advance. Is it a contract year? So like you freeze in a way, and Kevin Nash has talked about this. Had a small, very modest house, I think, when he lived in Michigan, and maybe even in Arizona when he lived out there. Um, he was very, very frugal with his stuff because he had no idea what he was making, had no idea what he was doing, even cars. He told me Strongbow told him one time, like, why buy a brand new car? You're driving brand new cars on the road every day. And that stuck with me too.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
the, all the financials are fascinating. And yeah, that's why, like, it's amazing to me too that, like, more wrestlers haven't wanted to become CPAs in their post wrestling career, because you have tons of on the job training with that.
Yeah. Really. It's just crazy to think, okay, you have to worry about every little thing, like the travel. Okay, something gets screwed up. Oh, you're going to be late to the show, and then
Mhm,
like each thing could domino effect into the other thing,
mhm,
plus the tanning, the eating, the drinking, the hotel. I mean, there's so many different things on top of like,
mhm.
okay, how's my push? How's my how the politics backstage? How come I'm jobbing to this guy? Or why am I not getting a push? Oh, then I got to think of something for merch, acknowledge me, or whatever shirt you want to use or whatever. It's like,
Hey, don't
man,
forget,
it's so much.
if you say hello to the wrong person the wrong way, that's stupid shit like that, right?
Give them like a weak handshake. Oh, this guy, I don't like this guy, forget about this guy. um Ryback just told me recently that he told Vince that he saw his brother, thinking like that's going to be like a good thing. Oh, I'm going to have an in with Vince. Like, all right, it'll be nice and friendly. And Vince blew up on him and said that he looks nothing like his brother, and like and wouldn't talk to Ryback after that. So it's like you say the wrong thing to the wrong like everything's like, oh, this is great. I know his brother. Now he's going to be nice to me. Yeah, my brother doesn't look anything like me. You know what I mean? Like the littlest thing, and you're done.
Well, that he's a maniac.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
Ryback, the other one.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
just think
but
it's
it teaches you, dude. The thing is that it seems like a pain in the ass, and it's a very it's baptism under fire in so many different ways and so many different aspects, but it helps you mature in so many different ways. And B, that's why I don't understand why more wrestlers, maybe today they are, don't understand the value of a dollar or the devaluing of the dollar or
yeah,
any of these other things that go on, and why they learn so reactively rather than proactively, or just the notion that they think like I had a 30-year career, like, close to a 30-year career, 20 of which or more was on TV to some degree. And
yeah,
I spent every waking moment saying, this isn't going to last. I'm very fascinated by the guys and girls that think it's going to last forever, when the trend is it really doesn't last forever. And usually the guys that think they're getting fired every minute have the longer careers. Have you noticed that interviewing a lot of guys?
yep. For sure. They, not that they hold on, but you know what I mean. They're very not paranoid to say, but they're very protective of themselves and what they're doing, and being very aware that they have to either save money or be a little smarter with money, or say, hey, in my contract, I want hotels, or you hear like little things that they ask for stuff in the contract, and ask for things or want things because they know, hey, this isn't going to last forever, and hey, I need to save some money now because I'm not going to be wrestling 50 or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Very interesting thing about that. The guys that get the tour buses and all this stuff, or the first class flights and their
Yep.
contracts. The company's getting that money back somehow. They're not,
Of course.
they're cutting out your merch sales to something. They're getting that money back. I would rather them just give me the money. I'll get the bus or whatever I'm going to
Right.
get, and I'll write it off.
Right. I think
That's
that's what
another thing
Big
about
Show did,
write-offs.
I
What's
think.
that?
Didn't Big Show just buy his own thing outright because he just literally he wanted to take care of everything on his own?
I would assume he's a smart
Yeah.
guy. So
Yeah.
here's the thing. Well, when you make $1 million a year, you can do that though.
Right.
But and you're 7'4", so like that's what Glenn and I had talked about, getting a tour bus. Glenn, myself, D'Lo, and Charles Robinson, because we love to play. We figured we'll play video games, we'll do our Madden stuff and everything,
Yep.
we'll eat better, and we just pull up to the parking lot of the gym, and we're literally and in the parking lot of the arena. We don't have to worry about the locker room or any of this stuff. And but the problem was I wasn't booked, and D'Lo, I think, wasn't booked steady enough to justify at that time 2,000 a month for each of us. Like Glenn, it would be a no brainer. He's booked on everything. But for us, if I had to pay 2 grand a month and I wasn't working all three house shows a week in the TVs, it wouldn't be justified. Does that make sense?
Yep.
But we had a great idea. We had it all laid out, but it didn't work. What I was going to say too with the,
Tax
I forget,
write-offs.
tax write-offs. Thank you. There's a difference between, and this is where guys get into a lot of trouble. I said guys and girls, talent in general. When you think everything is a write-off, you tend to overspend. There's a difference between a tax write-off, and a tax credit. The tax write-off, like I'm talking to you on this computer and I want to upgrade the computer, but I have to look and see how much of the percentage of the new computer can be written off over the course of 2 to 3 years. Hotels, rental cars, other things like that. You might think if I stay at $150 a night Marriott or in Hilton's and stuff like that, it's a write-off. You have to look and see how much you're writing off. It's like eating. You get a per diem. You can take a per diem, from what I understand, to eat. So let's just say the per diem per day is $50, which to me is a lot of money. That's cool.
Yep.
But if you're eating Outback 3 days, or if you're eating Waffle House and then an expensive lunch and an expensive dinner, you only get $50 of a $125 food bill. That's
Yeah.
where guys get into trouble, and girls and talent and people in general, when they think a tax write-off is a tax credit, which is legitimately just the full amount that you're given towards your taxes, or it's just basically a cash payoff. Like if you only write off you know, say it's 50% of your hotel, I'd rather stay at the $50 a night and get the $25, which is a good 50%, or 150 basic math, you're losing $75. You're losing an amount of money on that. And from
Yeah.
what I understand from the tax code, that's you're not getting a 100% return on the write-off that you're doing. It does lower, your adjustable gross income, but not as much as something like, God, I feel like I'm doing a rookie symposium here. I guess that's why it's 101.
Yeah.
I would rather, this is the way I look at things now, because I save every bit that I can today too. To look at your wrestling income over a year, it's best just not spend it on anything at all except your basic housing and what you need and all that stuff. Why I save up all my money till the end of the year is I put the maximum amount in my self-employment IRA, my SEP IRA, to lower my taxable income. But that money that I put in there, like this past one, well, I'm not going to say what it is, but it was a great amount. I was very blessed. But when I was wrestling WWE, I was maxing out my SEP IRA at the time was 24,000 a year, and I was trying to find other ways to lower the taxable income as much as possible by throwing it into other retirements or whatever I could do. Because if I made 100 grand and I put 24 in there, they're only going to tax 76.
Right.
Now your write-offs come in, and now you truly, this is what you made for the year, like you said before. But if I'm spending that money all year and that's not in savings, I'm not doing anything. You know what I mean? I can't invest in my retirement, and I'm hurting myself even in the long run. Then you turn around and say, like, during the course of the year, do I put money into, at the time, I could put money into like a 3 or a 6 month CD, get the interest roll over in time to put it in the SEP IRA. I'm really
Right.
not as smart as I'm an idiot. I'm a moron. But this is things that have been taught to me by people that know more and from watching people with good habits. Just wanted to preface, I'm not an expert. If I don't know, I ask my cousin. I watched wrestlers like Mick Foley and Owen Hart over the years and tried to emulate what I could be comfortable emulating and what could benefit me in the long run.
Seems like you got to be very on top of things if you're a wrestler. Like you can't be spending money willy nilly. You got to be very careful of what
Mhm.
kind of way you're doing in your money, because I mean, it may look like, oh, I got a house and oh, I'm rich and all this other stuff, but man, when those tax returns come back or whatever, it's like, man, I think I owe money, or whatever
Oh,
the
oh,
case.
yeah,
Yeah.
dude, even if you pay, I was going to say, eh, taxation to some point. If people say it's theft, I have a slight agreement with that. But also, it's extortion because what they do for independent contractors and businesses each and every year, if you're working in different places, there wouldn't be a time. There wouldn't be a time I ever wrestled in California during the course of a year, from year to year, that I would pay their LA or the state tax. They would come back and go, "Oh, we had an adjustment, and you owe another $125 or 175 or 90," and that would be like 5 or 6 states, dude.
Wow.
Now, are you going to fight? You're going to go to your accountant and I go, "I want to pay you to fight this $90." You're just going to pay it, right?
Yep. But that
That would
adds up
happen
over time.
every year.
That adds
Almost
up.
to the almost to the point where I would be like, is it worth wrestling anymore? Because all I'm doing is paying all these. I'm paying all these, and that's why places like TNA and now AEW to an extent exist, and people flourish because the quality of what they're making, especially TNA, because they only really ran in Florida.
Right.
If you lived
Yeah.
in Florida and worked in Florida and you didn't have to travel, your taxes were super easy. And that's a factor. That's a factor with professional athletes too. Why did this guy go, like, why did Tom Brady move to Tampa Bay as opposed to Massachusetts? No state tax.
Yep.
Very simple. So, um, But yeah, I mean, that kind of stuff, all it to like, I now I'm on the other end of it, and my life is much simpler, tax wise, finance wise, logistics wise. I appreciate it. But you have to learn a lot of things the hard way. Well, maybe let me take that back, because we didn't. God, I'm so friggin' old. We didn't have YouTube, and we couldn't Google it when I started wrestling. But now you can literally look up a YouTube video on how to live as an independent contractor, how a SEP IRA works, how adjustable. Like, what do you mean by adjustable? Adjustable gross income. You could just look up a YouTube video to explain everything. So, if anybody in this day and age is a professional wrestler gets into tax trouble, it really is something you've done. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Or didn't do?
Yeah, I was gonna say probably didn't do more than likely. Yeah.
Mm.
Man, ooh, the day in the life of a wrestler. It's
Are you
just
exhausted? Just I'm exhausted recounting it.
yeah, it
It's
just doesn't seem as fun as you would think.
And yeah, don't forget you got to get in the ring, and most times you're taking bumps, and your back and your neck, and you're concussed. All the physical stuff is the yeah. After all that, you got to get in the ring and wrestle.
And
That's
then and then sometimes they'll give you terrible creative too, right?
sometimes.
Most of the time.
But I'll repeat it again. It was such a blessing, and I'm so thankful for the career that I had, and the fact that I was able to parlay that into, somehow getting paid the podcast, have a YouTube channel, and have a fitness brand and all that stuff. Because even after I was released in WWE in 2008, that's a whole nother thing for guys and girls. When the release comes, and it will eventually come for all of us, the the wrestling business will pass each and every one of us by, and then you got to figure out what's next. Now you have these tools and these foundations that you don't realize you have. You're actually an accountant. You're actually a travel agent. You're actually somebody that can
Yeah.
that can organize. If you can monetize those skills with your own business, or even going to train and have that discipline to do anything that you want within your life after that in the next chapter, you have it within you. It's just a matter if you want to be lazy or if you want to apply those skills and discipline.
Feels like it's a lot more intensive than anybody kind of realizes. I guess when you sign up for it, when you think of it from a fan perspective, that man, it is a tough life. You're traveling all the time. You're not home a lot. You're constantly renting cars or in sleeping in different rooms every night, or sleeping in the car sometimes, like you said. So
Yeah.
man, it doesn't seem like the life, that it could be, unless you get to a certain point where they're giving you all that stuff, or they're your first class and stuff like that. But that's rarefied air.
Well, I would maybe counter that with the fact that even if you are in first class, you're still on a plane for the same amount of time as somebody in coach.
It
You're
still
still
sucks. Yeah,
driving the same.
that's yeah.
Kevin Nash, Lou Albano told Kevin Nash that there's only two things real in wrestling. Once again, a very stoic type of saying: the miles and the money are the only two things that are real.
Yep, that's true. By the way, did you ever watch Seinfeld at all?
I did.
You did. When you were talking about write-offs, I kept thinking of that awesome Jerry Kramer exchange where he goes, "What? They'll just write it off." And Jerry goes, "Write off what?" He goes, "You don't even know what a write-off is." And he goes, "No, do you?" And he goes, "No." I
And
just
basically, both are independent contractors with what they do.
yeah. It's just funny, like, to think, like, man, like, you gotta know, like you said, you gotta know taxes and stuff too, or have somebody you can trust doing that stuff. It's like, whew,
Yeah, you
that's
remember the
intense.
scene from Rocky Five where he was in the high-rise attorney's office and he lost everything because he
Yep.
signed power of attorney over to Paulie and the accountant. Yeah, that can happen, man. I mean, but the number one thing that probably leaving this episode with anybody, wrestler or not, is just live as far within your means as possible and develop those habits. And you'll never, Stevie Ray's a famous, he's never had a big fancy car, and he always lived within his means, and he lives the same exact way now as he did when he wrestled. I live, I actually live a more blessed life now. I have more stuff now because my brand, my brand and everything has flourished from the fitness stuff and being an information source and being able to you monetize that is incredible. All from the comfort of my own home. How all that stuff that I did when I traveled for so many years has now come home to roost in a really good way. So I'll let you do a monologue real quick. We have some people checking some stuff here. It's like when you work from home. I'll be right back.
Yes. So we're basically getting a day in the life from Stevie here. We learned about eating. We learned about drinking. We learned about taxes. Basically, you got to pay each state, which is just insane if you think about it. Each state, you have to pay attention to the taxes and figure that stuff out. So you better have a damn good accountant, or like TurboTax, if you're listening. The TurboTax is a great tool. So you're an independent contractor. You're spending money like crazy on the road. You got to keep track of it. You got to keep track of your accounting. You got to keep track of the hotels and the flights and the driving. I mean, whew, it is a huge headache being a
I
pro
want to I
wrestler. I
want to
think
give
that's
you a
the
little
bottom line.
Easter egg of how I live my life now, and I'm very like my mindset has changed, and it's that this seems real grim and everything, but when I wrestled, I was saving my money and doing whatever I can, and I've lost money throughout my life too. It's gone up and down, but I'm in a position now where obviously saving and trying to invest, but that money is not for me. Like like I said, I got this microphone for free for review. I got the home gym equipment, the stuff I like. I usually build a relationship with a company in order to collab with them and end up getting stuff. Road has been a very kind, you know, generous company with the Roadcaster Pro. We got the broadcaster, the equipment there. The home gym equipment, I've built my brand as an information source, like I said, and not only monetize it, but to an extent get mostly free gym equipment. So that's money
Yeah.
saved right there. The money that I have in the bank, the money I have invested, and the money I have in all my retirement stuff, it's not for me. It's for my loved ones. It's for my wife. It's for people to benefit. So when I go to buy something or spend or not spend, I know the money is going towards maybe not generational wealth, but I know that the people I care about, God forbid, if anything happened to me, they would be okay to an extent of financially. Like these cool $6 Goodwill sneakers.
Nice.
You know what I mean? Like that that saved me 94 to 100 and some dollars in shoes. And these are basically brand new. That seems silly to most people. I buy these shirts I got for free from 32 Degrees, but I
Nice.
paid for them before. This is $6. The shorts are $7. Socks are like, whatever. It's so I mean, it all adds up. And I know that might sound a little too obsessive, but I think we're living in times right now, John, where people need to be very obsessive about how far they need to stretch their dollar in the coming future because it's getting pretty scary.
Now, do you always wear blue? Is that a prerequisite for the
Yeah,
BWFC?
people think I'm wearing the same. Yeah, I got very much a Steve Jobs type of complex, not being a jerk and yelling at people who would listen anyway. But I generally wear the same things. I've just realized it this morning because I have to film videos. I was like, holy shit, like the last 5 videos I think on YouTube are all in the same blue shirt. I have like 7 blue shirts because I bought multiple ones from 32 Degrees because the guy was a wrestling fan. He sent me blue for the Blue World Order.
Of
I have
course, of
black
course.
soccer shorts and black pants. Black and gray or probably 12 to 13 shirts. So it's very much like Steve Jobs, who had the turtleneck with the jeans straight across. That's what my closet looks like. So
Nice. I
yes,
love it.
I Blue World Order, my favorite color is blue. Very easy.
It's got to be blue. Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah, you got to wear the blue. So, final thoughts. Day in the life of a wrestler. What do you think?
I gave him a little bit more than a day, and I hope it wasn't too much. You know what I mean? I kind of gave
Yeah.
him how that day has changed over my career and lifetime. I'd say no matter what you're doing, that you need to really embrace whatever suck there is. Like, I can't do this. I'm bad at this. I'm never going to get good at it. Like, I might have gotten good at wrestling, but I realized how much I really needed to learn with all the other stuff. And also, man, I mean, some days like that can get you really down as a wrestler. If anyone's listening or watching this, and you might think it's this day sucks. But if you get up the next day and you're able to get out of bed and walk and head to the gym and wrestle your match and do what you always dreamed of doing all your life, it's not a bad day. You might have had a 24-hour day and you might be in a red roof and someone upstairs might be walking around and you might not be able to sleep, but you literally have worked so hard to get to that point that it is what you chose to do. And if it's what you chose to do, you don't feel so stressed out or frustrated by it. It's like, okay, I chose to do this and this is part of the whole deal. You'll have a much easier, less stressful career, which I should have learned a long time ago.
Also, it seems like if you can get in a pattern, like a veteran wrestler, like, okay, I know I got to do this, it kind of can roll and you kind of get in a little bit of a groove, I guess.
Finding your rhythm. Yeah. If you
Yeah.
definitely, I hope there's people out there, veterans or people with more experience that are taking young talent under their wing. And more important than teaching them, John, being patient with the fact that, like, hey, I was once there and I'll let them, and not judging them and not like making it harder on them, letting them kind of like get it out of their system and say, okay, I did that too. Now let me explain, like, now that I'm past all that, what you're going through. There's no perspective that way. Like there wasn't when I was at that point, but I hopefully there's veterans that do that. And hopefully I will be the voice of those people too. I
Do you
didn't cough
think,
once. How about that?
yeah, pretty awesome. Do you
No.
think that day in the life of the wrestler, like it's harder than people think? Or do you think most wrestlers know what they're getting into? It seems like most don't know what they're getting into.
It's harder because lots of professional athletes tried pro wrestling out and they're shell shocked because they don't have the infrastructure of people around them to kind of, would it be considered to be babying them and coddling them like NFL players and other players that have everything that they ever need, have their meal prep little container, have
Mhm.
everything ready, have the big chartered plane, like you got to run a car or you don't have a bus for everybody. It's quite a bit harder, I think, than not only civilians, but also other walks of life experience say, oh man, and I think that's a lot of times too, on a side note, what a lot of times too, people that go to NXT who have no prior wrestling experience and then go to the main roster without, and I think they're kind of left out in the wilderness. Like NXT fosters a certain support infrastructure. Then when you get to the main roster, it's like, wait a minute, my car's not booked. Wait a minute, I gotta get a hotel. Like they are like, wow, this is hard.
And I'm sure if you're in NXT, you're probably sleeping in your own bed, right? Every night too. I mean, that's going to be a change.
Why do you think Champa stays there and Finn Balor wanted to go back in? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, you might think that's a step back, but like I said, quality of life, man. You get to a certain point where that is more important than the money. And if you're making a full-time living while living and working in Florida and don't have to pay taxes anywhere else,
Yep.
good on you.
And it's not that expensive to live there in general, just the houses. Like I got a buddy down there. If he had the same house where I am in Jersey, it'd be like a $600,000 house. I mean, it'd be nuts. But he lives down there, half the price or whatever, less than half the price. So it's crazy. And he's got a huge house. So it's crazy down there. You can get a lot more, more bang for your buck too.
I'd say that the trend's changing. Everybody moved down
That
there.
that's what I'm saying. That's what I heard too. He said he's lucky he bought the house when he did because
Yeah,
he heard like
exactly, dude.
his neighbors. He's like it like doubled or something. So he's lucky he got the house when he did.
Hmm. Well, we're
But
waiting.
yeah,
We're waiting until,
yeah,
because of 4A, I don't care about the monthly payment. I care about the principal and how quickly I can pay it off. And
yep,
I'm sure he's like that too.
yep.
Get this thing paid off.
And he's smart too. Not to get into like the weeds or anything, but he works in a different state. He works from home, but technically he gets paid from a different state. So it's not like sometimes people are like, oh, you work in Florida, you can't make money. Well, he makes money from another state, so it it balances pretty good. So there are certain ways to do it and do it right when
They're
you
gonna they're
do it,
gonna get they're gonna try to get theirs no matter what. Just know
Oh yeah.
that
Oh,
yeah.
he'll be paying double taxes. I'm
Trying to
sure.
be
No doubt
smart
about
about paying taxes is not the same as trying to avoid it. You'll
that.
never
Yeah.
avoid it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're screwed either way. But Stevie, before we go, give us all your social media plugs, all your Stevie fitness plugs, everything you got going on.
Sure. I tend to hate social media, but I got to use it just like everybody else.
Yeah.
Instagram is my go-to at Stevie Richards. But also, just more importantly, if you can go to my YouTube channel, if you search for Stevie Richards, it will come up. We have lots of health and fitness videos. Actually, my wife was a voiceover actor. So we're going to do a microphone guide because from my health and fitness, and you heard when I was coughing, my voice is very sensitive. I need the right microphone and right audio equipment because I have a vocal cord implant, and if I had tons of surgeries on my vocal cords, so it's very very important for me to have the right equipment. So we'll be doing that on the YouTube channel. But please check the little description. See, I'm bad at plugs. Ben's better than I am. Please check the descriptions of all the videos. All my affiliate links and codes are in there. That helps fund the YouTube channel. And of course, you can go to StevieRichardsFitness.com. The resistance band training programs that we talked about during this episode, when I didn't have access to a gym and had to use the bands, that's what the programs are based on. My experience with 20 years using the bands. So go there, check that out. And that's about it.
Nice. Great stuff as always. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. Check out the website, tmptempire.com, and Patreon, patreon.com/tmptempire. Stevie, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you right back here next week for a little Pro Wrestling 101. See you next week, folks.